The Social Shift with Josie Ngaifiwa is a podcast platform that allows for every opinion to matter. However, views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Social Shift podcast and team. For the past 4 weeks, we have been on a very long and fruitful journey together. The Social Shift with Josie Ngaifiwa launched on the 27th of October, and week by week, we've been unpacking one or the other social issue that affects Namibian youth on a deep level. Now, we've covered politics, we've covered democracy, and of course, even traditional authorities last week with Taimi and Sharonice. And this week, we're taking the conversation further. Now, of course, none of this would be possible without the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation, who so graciously sponsored our mini-series, and we are grateful for their commitment to furthering conversations around democracy and generally how that affects the youth on a grassroots level. The Konrad Adenauer Stiftung is a German international political foundation with more than 100 offices worldwide. The KAS Namibia and Angola office, based in Windhoek, works to promote democracy, the rule of law, human rights, and political participation. Through educational initiatives and socio-political dialogue, it supports good governance and the strengthening of civic responsibility. KAS's work aims to foster freedom, justice, and sustainable development in Namibia and beyond. As usual, my name is Josie Ngaifiwa, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I've always wanted to say that. Now, our guests today are two women who have really committed themselves into the system of education and ensuring that their work speaks to what it is us as a country need to understand about the importance of education and how that should be prioritized in furthering the development goals of the country. Helena Ngaifiwa and Lina Ndengu are joining us here today. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
So, obviously, now we've been having a number of episodes and we've been talking about a whole lot of things, but I want to shift the gear to education because that's the talk of the town now. 2021, the curriculum changed. And we saw an uproar in society. The introduction of AS levels brought a lot of confusion. And unfortunately, we also saw a decline in the passing rate. In a lot of instances, which is disappointing considering the times that we live now. We expect children to be smarter because they have more access to technology. And the question that we are debating today is the Namibian education system preparing the youth for employment? And we're going to look at it from the traditional aspect of education, but we're also looking at it from the soft skills aspect because that's an element that seems to be missing in our education system at the moment. Lina, I'll start with you because working with the Namibian Qualifications Authority, you guys really safeguard accreditation of institutions and the quality of qualifications that are given out. Yes. Do you think that we are preparing our youth with the current education system in place?
Oh, that's a tough question, Josie, because when I look at it, it's like you said, there was an uproar on the new curriculum. But I still feel that we are still spoon-feeding our children in the normal grade 1 to 12. The critical thinking, problem-solving, digital aspect of things are not being revived for them to say that maybe if I use my computer to do this, the AI, that all these beautiful things are not incorporated in the new curriculum even. So when these students go to university or higher learning institutions, they actually struggle because they were spoon-fed. And at university, you are expected to think, and you are expected to be creative and innovative, and that is not what is happening in the normal traditional school.
And what about? Because I always hear people saying, education as a course is the dumping ground for the kids that didn't do well in grade 12. You got the bare minimum, so go study education. and that's a wrong thought process to have because if we think about it, education is important. The lawyers must be educated by an educator. The doctors must be educated by an educator. So it's actually the foundation of any economy, right? And that kind of thought process is what leads us to have a lot of teachers that might not necessarily be passionate about teaching because a teacher who is not passionate is not teaching effectively. And then a child is not able to learn effectively and therefore grow in education effectively. Helena, your opinion?
When you were talking now, and we're talking, are we setting up our young people? I look at the system. If we are in 2025 and we are announcing that we're building schools for children that have been studying under trees, what are we saying? How many years after independence is lack of education, just basic lack of education, still a conversation? So there are so many other factors that play a key role, but are we providing fair basic education to all the young people in Namibia? Because at the end of the day, we have a group that obviously gets it, but the bigger group, are we looking at that group? And like we spoke about 2021, we set up the new curriculum. We had COVID. We said, you know what, guys, what you can do? You can study online. I mean, Hangwena, I don't have internet. I don't have Wi-Fi.
I mean, I've never seen a laptop in my life.
The only place where there's a TV in my village is at the bar where people watch soccer. And you're telling me, hey, let's study online and see how it works. So are we providing basic fair education for all the Namibian young people? And I think that is one of the things that maybe government needs to look at.
And what about the discrepancy between what is considered as quality education and basic education? Because we see there's a discrepancy. Parents have to now sacrifice an arm and a leg to send their child to a private school just in order for the child to get quality education. But is quality education not supposed to be the premise upon which government provides?
Josie, maybe I would like to get in there. If you look at the Namibian government, the education policies are beautiful. The acts are beautiful.
On paper.
On paper, it's really beautiful, but when it comes to the implementation part thereof, this is where we're really having a lot of challenges. So we're actually starting to say the foundation that we are laying, are we doing the right foundation? Are we building the right foundation? Because it's like you're saying, the child in the village school and a child in Bantuk, grade 1, grade 2, is the foundation the same? Then when you come to grade 8, is the foundation still the same? Because a student is expected to have laboratories. They don't have that. They're supposed to have computers.
I think even just textbooks.
Textbooks. Textbooks. Do they have those resources in the villages? They don't. Even some of the schools in Windhoek, not just in the villages. So now this child that has never been in a lab or, are expected to write a practical exam at the end of the year, and they being having never seen in any of the lab apparatus or equipment, how do you expect them to fare comparing to a child that has been at a private school that has these resources? And then once this child gets to university, it's like they are lost.
And it requires a lot for them to catch up to the rest.
So now you really were not exposed to many of these things, and then when you get to university, you are expected to be a critical thinker, be innovative, be creative, and apart from your foundation that is already lacking, how do you transform that, or how do you change into that as a student? I really just feel that there's a lot happening that still need to be done, where we're saying we need to start looking at, it's not just the government that needs to work at what is happening in the education space. Corporates need to come on board. The communities need to come on board. Our teachers are, a teacher has been a teacher that only studied 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Do they know how to, change and start teaching on what is expected in the 21st century? Because they only know how to teach the traditional way of things.
And even with the new curriculum with the AS, you find that a lot of teachers are learning with the learners while teaching the subject. And so you can't expect a high pass rate if you yourself don't understand the content as well. You bring up a very crucial point, and Helena, now I want to ask, do you think that there's more that needs to be done in terms of how we capacitate teachers? Because I think that, especially in the rural areas, right, you rarely hear of teachers going for in-service training or even public speaking training. You find a teacher that doesn't even know how to speak properly.
That is shy.
Or that is shy. It's not their vibe, but they are teaching. And for most of them, it's survival. I need a job, so I went into education because that's all I could do. what can be done in terms of capacitating our teachers, particularly in rural areas, so that we can shorten or make that gap smaller between quality of education they receive in urban areas versus rural areas?
I think so much, and when we spoke about the AS level now, things like that have to be put in a plan as to say, if we're going to implement this curriculum, at least let's backtrack 3-4 years before we do that. We need to make sure that our teachers are well equipped. Yeah. We cannot be running together at the same time, you and the student.
Yeah.
Definitely we need to, and we're going with the pace, we're going with the new worlds, there's AI. If you are, and especially now with so many things, social media, mental health, all of these things that are happening that you did not experience 20 years ago or 5 years ago. And so I really think, and I'm speaking under correction, and I hope that this is something that is in place. And I hope, or if it's not in place, then it's something that has to be in place, because we need to at least, I don't know if it's a yearly or every second year or something, there needs to be a sort of check-in with the teachers.
Yeah.
Where we are now as teachers, we look at the problems. What are the basic problems that our kids are going through? How do we tackle these problems? For me, basic things that are not just, especially on government, and I know that most of the schools stopped this, it's things like feeding programs. How are you teaching a child on an empty stomach?
Yeah.
As a teacher, we can capacitate the teacher, but then what are we doing for the students as well, and for the community as well? And also, like I say, teachers, we need to check in. There needs to be, like you're saying, you need to go for public speaking. How do I speak to my learners? How do I speak to the parents? How do I not with a parent like that, because this parent is coming from a background where they don't understand on how to have proper dialogues with one another. So what is the government doing? And I don't really want to be posing this so much to the government, but also just as an individual, as a teacher, what are you doing? I know some people are like, listen, this is my job. I'm going to do what I got to do, and I got to collect my check. Don't tell me to do anything extra. But I really think that these are things that must be implemented already within. If you are a teacher, this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to go through. Because especially in our rural areas, especially in our disadvantaged schools as well, I think there we need to capacitate our teachers just a little bit more.
Yes.
Because what that teacher is deling with, and the teacher at Windhoek High School, it's two different
things.
It's two different things. And this one has, obviously, the problems that this teacher is going through is teaching a child on a hungry stomach, for example. And this teacher doesn't have that type of problem. So we really need to make sure that we well equip this teacher to make sure that she teaches and produces the same results that this teacher is also producing.
And that's very important if we're going to have a general approach to education, right, and the preservation of the quality thereof. Lina, I want to shift gears from government a bit, because like the both of you have been saying, it's not just government's responsibility. There are many stakeholders that are involved. Let's talk about the parents. I know a lot of parents have not checked homework in all 12 years that the child was grade 1 to grade 12.
Josie, we don't understand the homework.
That's the problem. Because, Membe, why are you a director at Shilimela Security Services, but you cannot check why Y equals MX plus C? What is the involvement? How important is the involvement of parents in their children's educational journey? Because there must be an interest that is taken there. And sadly, a lot of parents aren't. Albeit, we also understand the economy. I'm also just trying to provide. Most households are single mother households. Now I'm working 2 jobs to put you and your 5 siblings through school because all your fathers ran away. Now you still expect me to sit and do homework. When I'm coming home at 7, I must feed you. It's not possible logically, but there is a responsibility that a parent holds.
Yes, there is indeed a very big responsibility as a parent, because the teacher can only do so much.
Yes.
But when it comes to homework, as a parent, you need to make the time to check. Is your child, doing homework? And I mean, when the teacher send back the test books, are you going through the test book to see? And at least sign and acknowledge that no. And if you see that your child is not doing well, you should make an appointment with the teacher.
Yeah.
And I mean, the schools always have parent-teacher meetings. Many a times parents don't even pitch
No, they
for
don't.
these meetings,
Yeah.
which already is a problem. But we're also saying as, the government said free education, but as a parent, can we get extra resources at home for the child? Because now when the child comes from school, they go on a gadget and they just on a gadget 25 for
YouTube,
3 hours.
Coco
And-
Melon, we must be freed from the
Yeah.
clutches of Coco
And
Melon.
I'm saying you can use that. I was just telling Helena earlier that I just love reading. And I mean, there are many people ask, why do you speak so well? I said, because I read. I love reading. And reading groomed me into how I speak. And our children don't like reading. When you give them a book, they pretend to read, but they're not reading. So we should be able to say that, okay, after you read one chapter, tell me what you read. Explain to me, or is there new words that you learned from that passage that you were reading? And I mean, this is how as parents we should start getting involved, because the resources we already know is not enough. But we really as a parent also just need to give our side of it and make sure that we also contribute towards the bigger goal of what the government is trying to do.
And just adding on to what Lina said, Helena, early childhood development is very important. And unfortunately, I don't think we understand the purpose of it in Namibia. For most parents, a kindergarten is just a place where I can dump the child while I can go work because I can't afford the nanny or I can't afford both, right? But there is cognitive development that's supposed to happen in the toddler stage already that will make it easier for the child to grasp information when they grow up. Why is early childhood development, or why should it particularly be important and a priority area for government as well? Because now we are also suffering under the private ECD centers because they are very expensive. I have a garage and a big yard, so I put a couple of colorful tires, boom, it's a kindergarten. But there must be a science behind it.
Yeah. I think early childhood development is the foundation, is the key foundation to a child, not just learning, but understanding. So, as parents, you want to start teaching your child from a young age. And kids generally, it's almost like so they know that I need to study, I need to learn, I need to do all of this. And I don't think you can start as a parent installing that in a child at grade 7.
No, it's
or at
late.
grade 8.
Yeah.
So I really think it's important that we need to invest in early childhood development, education. I always, with the Office of the First Lady, I always applaud them because they have an education program where they fund scholars within school and not at varsity level, because they understand in order for us to provide to produce students for varsity, we need to produce good learners in schools. So it's very important that we invest in that as well, because so many times, I don't know, we throw a blanket over it. The child has to go to school, but you don't understand that in order for this is like you are cementing the importance of education from the onset. And when we're talking about parents being involved, I think parents, sometimes we forget. It's not, there's this notion where we are like, I gave birth to the child, but Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, it's your child.
Yeah, it's the teacher's responsibility.
No, ma'am. That is your child. What future do you want for your child? Where do you want your child to be? Like 12 years when they're done with school, what do you want your child to be? That decision is not going to be made by the teacher. So you have to be, and I really understand the teachers. The parents, I am that parent where my son tells me, Mommy, the teacher said we must not Google the homework. I'm like, hi, sir, I don't understand your homework. So I'm going to Google your homework so that I can understand what I must do. So parents need to be intentional and parents need to involve themselves in the children's, As a child, they grow up because they want to make their parents proud. Like even when they play, they want you to clap hands to encourage them. It should be the same with education. It should be the same with writing. And we need to install that principle from a very young age, because you're going to struggle if you want to do it when the child is grade 7.
Much older. And it doesn't have to be expensive. I think that's the misconception a lot of parents have, that in order for me to cultivate a culture of reading and writing and learning at home, if you want to teach a child 1 + 1 is 2, you find 2 rocks outside, you say 1 rock plus 1 rock is 2 rocks, and you don't have to spend any money for it. But also technology is really an ally in these instances because so many things are free on YouTube, and it just takes you sitting and watching with a Wi-Fi connection or why they're super aware if you are struggling. But it's about that cultivating that interest where when you are not there, the child's interest is still there.
Yes.
Lina, I want to talk about assessment. For the longest time, there are many opinions out there. The way assessment is done in schools and even in varsity, most people argue it does not encourage critical thinking.
Yes.
We have a system now where last year's question paper is the year before's question paper is the year before's question paper. So all I need to do is get the question papers for the past 4 years and memorize them, and I will pass the exam. But if I were to be asked to explain the theory, I won't be able to do so. Or if the lecturer or teacher decides at the last minute to switch up the question, then there's confusion. How important is assessment in ensuring that the quality of education is preserved?
Assessment is very important, Josie. Let me maybe start with the ECDs. That one of the challenges we're facing in the country is that a retired teacher, because she has been a teacher for 30 years, feels that she can open training centers to train teachers that can go and open an ECD center. And we're sitting with a challenge where in the communities, everyone is opening ECD centers. A retired teacher is opening an ECD center, but they don't know that foundation, how important it is. And I think that is why we're sitting with the problem that when a child gets to grade 1, they still cannot read, they cannot write. When they get to grade 2, the child is struggling to adapt. While a child that was at an ECD that is really like teaching properly, the child is already writing and reading in grade 1. So these are that migration from from a kindergarten to primary school. It's really very important. When it comes to assessment, like we said, at the school, critical thinking is not considered. Creativity is not considered. And when the child write the final exam, grade 12, I was telling Helena earlier, it's such a problem because now what you've done through the year does not count. Your final mark in the exam is what counts. But when you were writing that exam, maybe something at home happened. You were emotional or you were nervous.
Anxious.
You were stressed. You were anxious. And what you're going to produce, the results you're going to produce is not going to be a good result. But now throughout the year, you were doing very well. During your tests and assessments, you were doing very well. I think when we were in school, you still had that case mark that went with you. And that case mark assisted you a lot because through the year you worked very hard. But when it comes to the final exam, you end up failing or you don't make it or you don't get a good mark to qualify to go to university. It's the same as when we have universities. It's like you're saying, the question papers keep being repeated and repeated, and it's really a big problem. That is why we said, when when the NQA is accrediting institutions, we are looking at how are they assessing students. Because it's very critical that we see how are they assessing students. And also we're also trying to say that you need to also incorporate internships for students. Students also need to go out into the field and learn
practically
for 6 months, go into an institution and see how to do a job before, so that they don't just say that no, I know theory, but when I get into a workplace I don't even know what is happening. So those are the things that we're really trying to ensure that when we do accreditation of an institution that is incorporated as well. But I actually want to also throw in the vocational training, the skills. When we were at school, I think in primary school already we were doing needlework.
Home ecology. I remember I got an A star.
Baking.
Gardening. Knowing how to needle if your trousers tore.
My daughter was like, Mommy, how do you know how to do these things? We were doing embroidery in primary school. I learned that in primary school. But when they got to primary school, these things were removed. And this is what built us, and this is what encouraged us to have these practical skills that we're having today. And I mean, when they removed that at school already, it removed an aspect of practicality or skills development at school level. And now also when they go to school, and once you remove the the technical aspect of the technical drawing for the boys, the typing for the girls, because that was usually the girls would do typing, girls would do technical. But I'm not saying that is what it should be, because boys can also do typing, girls can also do.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in our year when I was grade 12, one of the boys actually did do typewriting.
Yes. So now everyone can do that as well. So we're saying bring back these things into the school system. Bring back needlework, maybe sewing. Maybe I'll find my passion in designing, because I'm learning how to sew. Because we are saying, as you remember, you said that a lot of learners are not making it to university, but we are saying vocational training. Then there's that aspect of people are saying when you go to a vocational training school or VTC, you are not smart. But that is not the case.
It's apparently low class.
These people earn money every day. If you are an electrician or a plumber.
Listen, boiler makers make money.
They see money every day, which we don't see. We only wait for our salary.
Unfortunately.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, thank you for reminding my team to pay me after this.
That's what I'm saying, we should encourage students to look at what are you passionate about? What do you love doing? When you're at home, do you love baking? Then become a chef. You don't have to go and become a lawyer just because Josie studied law.
Or you come from a family of lawyers.
And teachers. And we're sitting with this situation where the market is oversaturated with teachers and nurses. And we're saying there is so much that can be done. We've got green hydrogen, gas and oil. Why don't you look at what fields are required there? I mean, NTA did a research in 2022 that actually gave the skills gap for Namibia in the labor market. What are the needs in the country? And I'm saying if life skills teachers can go to the NTA website and download this document and see and encourage students to say that no, we need boiler makers, we need welders, we need hospitality. We in these fields of study, this is where we need you to go. Don't think about teaching, guys.
It's the same options over and over again. So the kids don't know that there is a variety. They just know what it is they are told to do, and it ties in with we're not teaching the kids to think for themselves beyond that which is in front of them. Helena, let's expand on what Lina said. How important is soft skills development within the high and secondary and primary education space? Things like teaching kids how to regulate their emotions, self-confidence, empathy, discipline as a principle of life. We hardly have any preparation for that. Things like how to communicate, how to discourse properly, how do I have an argument rationally and still agree to disagree without becoming violent. Things like, for instance, even learning how to represent yourself verbally. If you're in an interview and you're asked, tell us about yourself. That's not a technical question. Most people struggle. But the preparation is supposed to come from beyond. What are some of the key things that our education system now is not addressing in terms of equipping our students in the soft skills space? Because that's just as important.
I'm laughing because when you said that, I had an intern the other day, and we were discussing something that she didn't do. And she rolled her eyes and she's like, I know my rights. I was like, excuse me, ma'am. You do what? So I think very, very critical and very important, especially, I will say from not even grade 10, grade 8 if we can, emotional intelligence. This is one of the things that, because remember, you come from high school, you have good marks, you go to varsity, you apply for a job, boom, you got a job. Now you, from the setting where you are coming from is high school, and high school is,
and also the teachers can,
that is
yes.
And in varsity is a different situation.
Nobody gives a flying cockroach about whether you go to your class or you don't. Nobody cares.
Exactly. And now you are in a professional setting, because now you are at work. This is your first week at work. The first thing is, and I think, and I don't know, especially within the life skills teachers, I think these are conversations that must be held all the time. How to dress properly at work, how to just, like you said, present yourself in an interview, how to speak about yourself, like who you are as a person. Emotional intelligence in such a sense that I am in a working space, in a working environment. I'm going to meet 10 different people with 10 different personalities. How do I deal with a difficult person? What person and what person, and still be able to produce results in my
Yes.
workspace as me as a person.
Yeah.
How do I not flip off every other person? How am I not in HR office every day crying? Because guess what?
Disciplinary
Yes,
hearing.
because guess what? There are just certain things. You can be very good, and you can have your A stars. You can be the best in that specific field. But if you don't have soft skills, you are probably going to sit at home with your degree or your, because then it's like something that I think it was a South African DJ Zinkler said once, that so many young people are unemployable because they have the qualifications, yes, but do they have the soft skill? Do they have that addition? And that, I think, is something from grade 8 already, so that you can go through it until grade 12, because then there's varsity, which is a gap, and then you are throwing into another setting, a setting which is work as well. I think it's very important on just how to just, in a workspace, how to behave. And I think I don't know if they want to do role plays or how they want to play it out, but they need to teach our kids on how to do these things, because after university, you are really just thrown into a workspace, and you are thrown into the deep end, and you must figure it out. Nobody taught you even how to walk into a working space, how to address your boss properly, what to say.
Being subservient to leadership.
To leadership.
Because now at your mother's house, you are a princess, ne?
Yeah.
You have rights, and then you come to the workspace and don't know how to navigate that. Tell me, extracurricular activities. We've seen that the kids that have been placed in extracurricular activities tend to perform better than those that didn't.
But you also realize that not many kids take part in this, because not all the parents would want their kids to stay behind until 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's the thing,
because how do I get to pick up my child?
Yes.
So the transport, it only goes there at 1 o'clock to pick the child. So I have to struggle again and have extra money to pick the child after a rugby practice or a chess practice, that's why you find it's really very few students that actually take part, and it's always usually the same students that take part in this, say from grade 1 up until grade 5, and then all the others are usually 1 o'clock they go home. And this is where we ask, what does a child do when they get home?
But I think
Take a nap.
But I think also this is where parents must also be educated on these type of things, because parents also need to be intentional to know that if my child is part of the soccer team, they learn things just like how to
teamwork and how to be a part of a greater good.
So parents also, maybe then there is also something missing there, because parents also need to be taught the importance of having kids participate. Also, just as basic as filling in an application form for a bursary or scholarship. They will ask, what are the extracurricular or sports did the child do? The child
Helena, going from grade 7 to 8.
Yes, you are
high school is asking you. And they look at what sports you're doing, because they're looking for sportsmen and women for their school. So if you're not taking in any of this, they don't even consider your application.
And it adds to the versatility of you. You don't just want to be a one-trick pony. Yes, I have straight A's, but what else can you do? Because if all 10 of you who applied for the bursary have straight A's, we are going to take the student that has a little bit more to offer.
What makes you special?
And they're not thinking about that. I want to also then ask regarding accreditation. And we're now shifting into the university space.
Yes.
There are so many institutions that are existing now, and a lot of them, are functioning under the guise of, we are cheaper than UNAM, or we are cheaper than NAS, so come to us. But sometimes they are not accredited, and you find parents that end up spending so much money and finding out later that certificate is worth nothing.
I have so many stories on that.
NQA and government, what is happening there to address that problem? Because now every other uncle has an academy now. And it's becoming a very, very serious problem.
Let me just say, when we were at the Venture show this week, and in fact, as we were being busy with the career fairs, trade fairs, we will have someone that, for example, a teacher that just retired or a nurse that retired, and say, I want to open a medical, a nursing school, or I want to open a teaching school so that I can teach ECD, So, and then you're like, okay, so do you have the resources? That's what the first question I always ask. But then, what happens is, as the NQA, we are mandated to accredit, higher learning institutions, training institutions, businesses that are having training departments, because we want to ensure that if you obtain a certificate, it's not just a certificate. It has to be something that is credible, that if you travel outside anywhere in the world, they recognize your qualification and they can employ you. That is the reason why NQA exists. So now we're sitting with a situation where once an institution registered, say for example at the NCHE or at the Health Professional Council or at NTA, for when it's skills related, once they've registered, they need to come to the NQA to get accreditation. And this is where most of the businesses don't come to the NQA. In the regions, we realize that we have a big challenge. We have a lot of nursing schools. We have a lot of IT schools, and none of these institutions are accredited. And that in itself is a problem. And unfortunately, the Act does not give us the power to close down these higher learning institutions.
So they can exist.
They do exist. They have registered, but they are not accredited. So what we're doing is we're currently reviewing the Act. Our Act was promulgated in 1996. So we're trying to review it now, where we can try and see how can we close this gap. We're looking at, for example, maybe we look at administrative penalties, that once you've gotten your registration, we're going to give you 6 months to a year to get your accreditation status and get all your qualifications that you're offering accredited. If it is not done, then we're going to start looking at administrative penalties, and we're not talking about $100. We're looking at money, because you are taking students' money and you are not giving them quality for their money, value for their money. So once we do that, maybe after that administrative penalty, if you still don't adhere to it, we're going to then revoke your registration. We're going to ask then whether it's the NCHE or NTA, or the Health Professional Council, to revoke your registration. Because, this is the only way we can really close down this gap and control it, because it is really a big concern. Yes, we know bogus institutions exist everywhere in the world, but we as Namibia, being such a small country, I believe once we really review the Act, we can basically close down this loophole that we have. And really in the regions, it's sad. It's like you said, Helena's child is at UNAM, but my daughter did not make it to the university, but there is a very cheap university or training institution, and I sent my daughter there. And after 3-4 years, this child come to NQA to evaluate their qualification, because nowadays employers are also saying, when you apply for a job, your qualifications should be accompanied by an NQA evaluation report or certificate. And really this is, and I'm actually excited to see that more and more businesses are putting this in their advert. Because this also then will start making people become aware of the NQA, to say that, okay, so what if I find out that my qualification is not accredited? What then? For me, NQA, I'll tell you, you can throw it in the bin. Because it's worthless. It's not legal. It's not legit. It's not a credible qualification that you obtained.
But there's also a responsibility on the part of the parents and the students themselves to do the research. I think a lot of them don't take don't do the due diligence to go the extra mile and just call NQA or go on the website, because there's a whole list of accredited courses on the website. So it's also about us taking ownership of our own education and the quality thereof, and going the extra mile to say, let me make a phone call or check this place where I want to go. Are they giving me a credible qualification or not? The topic is the Namibia education system preparing youth for employment adequately? Then we look at the unemployment rates. In the sky. It's high. And it's not making sense for a lot of people, because it's 35 years after independence. We've had so many more schools. Education, primary and secondary, is free. What is the problem? Why do we still have so many unemployable youth? Is it because there is seriously a lack of jobs in the markets? Are we not diversifying enough in terms of what we are studying? Or are there extra things that we are not doing in place to assist in making us employable, apart from getting a degree?
maybe let me quickly come in there.
Yeah.
I think, as like I said, we are taught to just be receptive. We just take in information and we throw out what we get in, but we're not thinking.
Yes.
We are not innovative. We're not creative. So here you are sitting with a qualification, and why are you not opening your business? You studied business administration.
Yes.
Why are you not opening your business? We're saying that you studied marketing or you studied communication. Why are you not opening a
media
PR
house
company
or
or
PR
media
firm?
house
Yeah.
or a consulting firm? You want to be employed like everyone, but I'm saying gone are the days where you have to walk into a business and become employed. We need to start thinking outside the box, and this is where we're saying we want education to change in such a way that from pre-primary, teachers should become creative and teach the children to become creative so that they can already go into that space of, okay, from this I can do this with my hands.
Yeah.
I can do this. When I think about this idea, I can bring it to fruition. And this is what we want. And as they go into secondary school, by the time they come into high school, they have lots of ideas popping. That's what we want. And that is, I think that is what the government ideally also would want. Because remember, the president said she wants a manufacturing Namibia. But now we're sitting with students that's sitting with degrees that they can't
They can't use.
They can't use. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
What are we doing?
And
The diploma in local government and housing. Yeah.
And I think that's why, especially when we're talking about VTCs, because we look at it as, no, I don't want to wear overalls. I don't want to
Get my hands dirty.
Yeah,
Get my nails done.
But like as a plumber, you can create jobs because you're gonna need a receptionist. You're gonna need an accountant. You're gonna need you're gonna need all these people if you open up your own business. So yes, there are a few factors. Are we diverse when it comes to career choices? That is a conversation that we can also have because. If you look at, we do the Namibia Careers Expo for almost 10 to 12 years now. We've done it countrywide. And if you look at the bulk of the learners, they want to do the common careers.
Yeah.
Like
Nursing, education, law, medicine, even when they don't qualify.
And I would usually ask them, but don't you think we have enough nurses? But you must remember, it's also what our kids are exposed to.
Yes.
When my son was much younger, he wanted to be a taxi driver. He thought that was like the end and the beginning. Because you must remember, the cool uncle.
I'm going to make Pat to start driving for me soon.
No, the cool uncle that used to come at home was a taxi driver.
Yeah.
So he would come home, and for him as a child, because that's what he's exposed to. So for him as a child so you just have a car and you drive around the whole day. And then people get in the car and they get off.
And they pay you.
For him, it was just so, people get in your car, they pay you, you make money. Wow, that's what I want to be.
Yeah.
Gradually later on, he got exposed to other careers and got exposed to other people. So I was intentional enough to make sure that I take him to career fairs, I take him to companies, I will take him to an uncle, somebody who has maybe an architecture firm. I'll take him to an uncle who, or somebody who is a dentist, so that he can be exposed and his mind can open up. Later he's like, no, I think I want to be an architect. You understand? That shifted from wanting to be a taxi driver to being an architect.
And we thank God.
And what happened in there, and what happened in there that sometimes we
Wait, pause. Not that there's anything wrong with taxi drivers. I'm just,
I
just
do
saying
not know.
You can have a degree while you're a taxi driver. That's what we're saying.
Yes.
No, but what I'm saying, what happened in between, there was exposure.
Yeah.
That we are also not intentional to give our kids.
Yeah.
And later on, it shifted as well, and now he wants to do something else because gradually he got exposed to different things. Our kids are not exposed. Most of our kids are not exposed. At the village, really, me Helena and me Sarah is the nurse. They are the breadwinners, and that's all you know, and that's all you want to do. So that's why it is important to, I think, exposure, not even I think, I'm 100% sure that exposure will really, really help a lot of learners on how to pick and choose careers because then they will know. It's like when I grew up, I wanted to do media. My father didn't get it. It's like, so you want to talk on TV? And I'll be like, yes. Then he will repeat, it's like, So that's what you want to do. But it's exposure, because for him, that's not a career.
Yeah.
So I think exposure is really, really, really important. And number two, our young people need to be driven to start their own businesses.
Yeah.
They need to know that if I'm not able to get it in the employment market, I can
need to
create
something.
employment.
And it comes from the perspective of doing research in the market and looking at where are the holes where I can fit something. Because that's how businesses thrive. You must fix a problem in society for your business to thrive, otherwise you won't have a clientele. Ladies, unfortunately, and I know we can continue talking the whole thing, but unfortunately, we have come to the end of the episode. But before we do close off, the both of you, final words in terms of prioritizing education, just briefly a minute each, prioritizing education, but also speaking into the importance of self-confidence within themselves. Because I think the reason why a lot of our kids are also unemployable and not diversifying, not making proper career choices, apart from the issues that the curriculum has or the education system has, is that there's a lack of belief in themselves.
Talking about lack of belief, I believe as a parent, I really just want to talk to the parents now.
Yes.
Many a times we shout at the children and we really speak words on them, and this is what break these kids. So it breaks those terms that we call them stupid, shut up, these
and
words
shaping
that
a
are
child.
shaping our children's future. And by the time they go to school, they feel like I'm stupid. Hey, I'm not smart. But and it starts at home, So I'm saying, as a parent, speak positive words into your child. I'm with my little one at home. Every morning when we go to school, I tell him, repeat after me. You are a champion. You are victorious. You are confident.
I tried to do that with my daughter, but she's just like Coco Melon. So I think I'll wait a couple of more years.
Every morning. So I said, until you get it in and you start saying it yourself, you are confident. You can do anything that the Lord has put on your mind. So you can achieve anything you want. So we speak these words, and it turns them into confident, adults one day, and that's where it starts.
Thank you so much, Lina.
When you said that now, I was questioning my parenting skills. It's like, listen. Hey. I'm joking. I think something that society, especially as a community, we can play a role shaping our young future leaders, our leaders, our generation, our young people. I think is the importance of role models.
Yes.
I always tell my cousins, my nieces, my sons, and I always tell them, when you have a role model, you have somebody that you look up to, you have that uncle or that aunt or that person that has what you want to have in future or who you want to be. Just tell just tell yourself, I can also become Ms. Chupsinyi Pandwa, and this is what I have to do to become that person. Because having a role model is almost like you don't want to let this person down, but what is so appetizing, what is so beautiful about that is it gives you a drive.
Yes.
Because now every day you have this poster of this person and you tell yourself, I'm going to achieve whatever I want. And guys, you can literally be. And I tell my nieces all the time that prove that auntie, that auntie that doesn't like you.
The one that always says, but my kids
the one
are
that
better
gets
than your kids.
the one that gets the results before the newspaper gets the results.
Every family has that auntie.
Yes,
Their kids are always better than the other kids until they end up in jail.
So prove that person wrong, and make and if it's not your parents, they must be somebody that you want to make proud one day. Go out,
and if there's nobody, then just yourself.
Just yourself.
Because you also deserve to be the best version of yourself for yourself.
Be that guy that shows up with a Range Rover 20 years later. Let them say yourself.
I don't know about the Range Rover, the current petrol prices, but okay. No, but thank you so much, Helena and Lina. Really appreciate it. And I think this conversation is going to start, especially amongst parents and children in the household. And that's what the social shift is about. Shifting the mindsets of, that conversation doesn't concern me. Everything concerns all of us all the time. And we need to dismantle one stereotype after the other while working towards it. Now, we've come to the end of our episode, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thank you to Lina and Helena. And most importantly, thank you to the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation for sponsoring our mini-series that is The Social Shift with Josie Ngipandwa. Remember, if you're just joining us, The conversation continues in the comment section, and from the comment section into your houses, in the taxi that Helena's son will drive in the future. The conversation must continue everywhere. Click like, subscribe to the channel, and of course, click on the notification button so you don't miss any of our future programs coming up next week. We are discussing if Namibia's democracy is only for the elites. My name is Josie Ngaifiwa, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.